Hello, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and I'm joined by Hank Goldberg, and he's in Florida. And Hank, I'm looking for another big NFL week. How about you?
Well, it's some interesting games this week. I'll tell you. The most interesting game to me is, I was watching NFL Network this morning, and that guy on there is not. I don't think he's very good. He was been plugging the Detroit quarterback all year, and now they asked him who's the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and he came up with a very odd answer. He talked about Atlanta, and he said that right now he thought that the top guy in the NFC was Matty Ryan. Well, he must not have been watching last night's game because he was awful, and he's not playing very well, and his numbers are way down, and he obviously misses his coordinator, and now he goes into New England, where he folded at the end of the game last year, and New England is only a 3-point favorite against Atlanta, and New England's defense woke up a little bit last week. And I think that I think this is a week for New England to have a big game. I just they're saying, well, maybe Atlanta got caught looking ahead to this game, and that's why they acted well in the second half against Miami. But they were awful in the second half against a bad Miami football team. And something's not right with Ryan, and he was way off on his passes. And he just, frankly, he stunk. And to say that he's the best quarterback in the AFC right now, I mean, I would take the Dallas quarterback ahead of him. Now that I would take them, I would take a lot of guys ahead of him right now. I think the guy in Los Angeles, who didn't have a great game last week, is probably playing better than Ryan. I think that the guy in Carolina is playing better than he is right now. I think there are quite a few guys. I think that you can look at New Orleans, and Drew Brees is playing better than Ryan is right now.
I totally agree. Matty's having a bad year, and I think the loss of Shanahan and picking up Sarkisian, who's still got a college mentality. I think that was a bad hire. But we said that before the season started. I did not like the switch.
Yeah, you were down on him right from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm really down on Sarkisian as a pro, in pro sports as an offensive coordinator. I mean, maybe he can learn his job. Maybe he can get better at it. But that's a big turnaround, and I don't see Atlanta doing much. And as far as New England is concerned, yeah, they're struggling mostly because, I mean, they do have some injuries, no question about it, but their defense has been their problem. The interesting part of this game, when we just look at this game a little bit, the total is very big. It's 55 now. It opened 53.5. And when you look at the fact that New England doesn't stop that many people, and Atlanta has the potential to be a very high-scoring team, I can see that move. And, you're not going to slow down New England much. I mean, Brady is playing at a very high level, and the only reason they're winning, not the only reason, but the biggest reason they're winning now is because of the exceptional quarterbacking that he is doing. Even though he's 40 years old, and they have their issues, he is playing very, very well. So you look at this matchup and you say, which quarterback do you want, Brady or Matty Ryan? I don't think it's close. So I agree with you. New England looks like the right side there.
Well, the New England is, coming off some not so great performances at home, but Atlanta has just been in a funk, and they're not playing well. Their second half performance against Miami, where they just allowed Miami to come from behind and score, 20 points in the second half against them, was shocking, because Miami had done nothing all year.
their second
And,
half,
they,
their second half performances against Detroit, against Buffalo, against I mean, they've consistently fallen apart in the second half. There's no question.
yeah,
Yeah.
going back to last year's Super Bowl.
Oh yeah. Um, you know, we all get a chance at the stage to get up on the stage in life, and I think they had it last year and they blew it. And trying to get back to that spot's going to be very difficult. They had the perfect scenario, 28-3 lead, everything going for them, and they gave the game away. I mean, really, they lost it more than New England won it. And I'm not taking anything away from New England. They still were a great team last year, but that particular game they weren't. But the play calling of Atlanta, I think that's just a curse that's going to ride with them. They're never going to, I don't think they're ever going to live that down, and I certainly don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year.
I think the most interesting, one of the more interesting games this week is New Orleans at Green Bay. Now, you know, that coach is being severely criticized in Green Bay because he's taken a stubborn position on the two quarterbacks that he has there. But people I respect have told me that that they think that the quarterback who inherits the job there is not all that bad. That he's learned the system well, and that he can play. And I'll be anxious to see what he does against the New Orleans defense, which has not been all that bad, although they did give up a lot of points. But I thought they were garbage points against Detroit last week in the second half because they were well in control of that game. And they are, you know, they're improved defensively. They've got two excellent running backs, and Breeze is playing very well. But I think Green Bay is an interesting play here because they're getting points at home. They're getting basically a touchdown at home, and everybody figures that this quarterback can't play, and yet, you know, McCarthy is showing a lot of confidence in him, and he does have, you know, fairly good weapons around him, and he showed some signs in the game last week that he could deliver, you know, under the right circumstances. And I'm not convinced that New Orleans is that great a defensive team. They're better than they were a year ago. But let's see what they can do going into Green Bay, which is an area, which is not an easy place to play in.
It's not an easy place to play. I'm going to watch this game. I'm not going to make any moves on the game going into it. But the one thing I might say is you're looking at a 47.5 number for the total. And no matter what I think of who's going to win the game, just consider the game plan that might come out of here. If New Orleans' defense is actually a little bit better, and they didn't play that badly last week against Detroit. There was a lot of touchdowns in that game that were given up by the offenses, and that doesn't go against the defense of the Saints. The Green Bay is going to have to play a limited offensive game plan. We have basically an untested guy here, and they're going to have to limit some of the stuff he does. So I'm looking for a more conservative game plan by Green Bay, and I don't see New Orleans just stepping up and scoring 30 on the road here. I mean, that's a tough spot. So I'm looking at the under in this game. You always have the potential of some weather. It's still a couple days before that. I'm not predicting that there will be, but there is possibility. You are talking about Wisconsin in late October.
Yeah, but I don't think weather's going to be a factor at this time of year. But I'm going to tell you something. I think that New Orleans is going in there thinking the way you are. And I think that Green Bay is going to come out firing this game. I think everybody figures that they're going to come out and play conservatively. And I think that Green Bay is going to put this quarterback to the test and let him play. I just think that they have confidence in him. I'm told that they do. And I don't think they're going to have him totally under wraps and come out there and just try to run the football and throw short passes. You watch. I'm going to make you a bet that they're going to come out and throw the ball downfield early against Green Bay, against New Orleans, and take them by surprise.
Well, we will see, and that's a slight difference of opinion we have, but we're allowed to do that. We got another game in London this week. We got Arizona going and the Rams, Western Division teams playing a division game, thousands of miles away. They're two West Coast teams in the Western Division of the NFC, going all the way to London to play a very important game. And the Rams opened 2, and they're 3.5 now. The total's 47. Isn't that unusual to put a very important division game on a neutral field? It just seems to me like the NFL is really stepping on their own, you know what, doing this kind of stuff.
I don't think when they made this schedule up that they thought this was going to be such an important game. When the schedule was first made up, they didn't think that the Rams were going to be that good. Remember, they won 4 games last year. But Goff and the Rams and their defense, the new coach, have surprised everybody, including the schedule maker. And frankly, Arizona is in a little bit of decline. So this was just a game, really. Playing the result, to say that this is an important game, it is an important game now. But something, here's another example of a team that's coming, a West Coast team that played in Jacksonville last week, and they spent the week in Florida, and they're shipping out on Thursday night, much like happened, we saw that with another team that went over there on Thursday night. It got blown out. And I think that's too late. The Dolphins went over there late, and they got crushed. They couldn't score. They couldn't do anything offensively over there. And Goff, I think, he didn't have a great game last week. They depended on Gurley to carry him in their win at Jacksonville. And now they go over there and they face a fairly decent defense in Arizona. And Arizona is probably going to be a little fresher because they went over there on Monday. And they're going to have a whole week, and they'll be fresh. Now you're talking about a West Coast team that's going to be playing the equivalent of 6:30 in the morning, their time. And I don't know how adjusted they're going to be because they will have spent the week in Florida, and they've got to get over there, and they're going to be fighting against the clock as well as everything else. I'm going to take a pass on this game because I'm not convinced that Arizona is all that good. I might look at the under.
Well, they added Adrian Peterson, and I know he's at the tail end of his career, but he had a pretty good game last week, and that was after losing Johnson earlier in the year, a great running back, Arizona really was struggling. But they did a job last week. Now, granted, they played Tampa, and Tampa is stepping on their own foot also. But Arizona's a veteran team. They have a lot of veterans, where the Rams are a younger team. The experience of traveling to go to a place like this, I think you're right. It's going to have a bigger effect on the Rams, a negative effect, than it will on Arizona. I like Arizona in the game.
Now, of course, the Rams played there last year and didn't do that poorly. So they have experience playing over there. But I don't know. I'm not an Arizona guy. I don't look for them to run the ball that well against the Rams defense. Last week the Rams did a pretty good job on Fournette. After he had the big run, they pretty much stopped him the rest of the game.
Well, it's another game where there are small dogs this week that could be alive, and this could be across the board. We saw 11 dogs cover last week, and several of them, especially the big ones, they won straight up. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some more of that this week in competitively priced games, and that would be one I'm looking at. I see a neutral floor. I mean, basically, what you're saying, if the Rams are 3.5 on a neutral field, they would be home laying 6.5 or 7. I don't buy that. I think the price is too high.
Well, yeah. What do you think that if Rodgers was playing for Green Bay, they would be over New Orleans in this spot?
6.
So you're talking about a 12-point swing.
Yes.
That's why I like Green Bay here. I think it's a tremendous value play.
I totally agree. It's definitely a value play. The price adjustment. Now, granted, Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in football. There's no doubt in my mind that he is. And the adjustment of a 12-point line in an NBA game is rather remarkable. I mean, these guys, everybody that walks on the field in a pro game is a pro. So they all have talent. It's the experience factor that you're missing. That's the issue. And Green Bay has offensive line problems. They started last week off pretty healthy, but during the game they carried off a couple of their offensive linemen. So they have some issues there too. But this quarterback has a lot of mobility, and that can make up for offensive line issues. So that's a tremendous adjustment. A 12-point adjustment is really a really huge adjustment. There's a couple really good. I mean, there's a division game between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did a job on Kansas City last week. Cincinnati has turned it around a little bit.
Pittsburgh did a job on Kansas City because their defense played well and the running back dominated the game. But Fat Face was not very good.
No, he wasn't, and he's had a down year. And I keep repeating this. He talked seriously about retirement in the off season, and maybe psychologically to some degree he actually did retire. But he's picking up a big paycheck. But I'm not sure that he's the same guy. A division game. I mean, division games are tough, and this is a big game for both these teams. I don't think either one of them are anywhere near what we expected them. Well, Cincinnati, I didn't have that much hope for this year, but that's a big game. We have another one. Of course, Miami and the Jets got two bad teams, but the Jets have played a lot better than anybody gave them credit for. A lot of people thought they were going to be 0-16.
Well, I'm going to point out something about the Jets. Last week, while they played, they did cover against New England. Or did they cover against New England? I guess it was a big number. But
yeah, they
anyway,
did. They did. They lost by 7, taking 9.5.
Yeah, but they only had 200 yards in offense. And so they are not moving the ball all that well right now. And Miami does have a good defense. And they really shut Atlanta down in the second half. And Miami home now, all that travel is behind them. And this is a payback game. Remember, the Jets beat them pretty good up there early in the season. And I like Miami a little bit this week. I think they got their running game going. And I think that they'll be able to run the ball against the Jets. And, the Jets are young. And, this is the point in the year where the Jets might seek their level, which means they could lose the last 13 games of the season.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're going to be an underdog in every one of those games, but we do know that underdogs do win. But I look at this game. There's been a slight move, but a significant number change. The total opened 39. It's down to 38.5, 38. And I do like the under in this game. I don't see there could be a lot of points on the board here.
I think this is a game Miami can win. Miami is actually, they're all tied for first place in this division right now. But this is really the softest spot in the Dolphins' schedule looking ahead, and this is kind of a must-win for them. And
definitely.
And I think that I just don't think that the Jets defensively are going to be able to pressure the quarterback. They've got some defensive issues. I think they've got some injuries, and they're coming in here, on the road again for the second consecutive week. I just think it's a good spot for the Dolphins. Might find a little bit of a comfort level getting off the road.
They have had a nightmare travel. I mean, it started with their first game being canceled because of the hurricane. Not canceled, but postponed. Then they had to spend the week in California, and then they had to play all those road games, including going overseas. It's been a nightmare run for them, but the win last week had sparked them pretty good.
I mean, let's face it, the Jets quarterback has been playing way over his head. He's due to throwing a clunker.
He has played well, that's for sure. Well, Hank, I know you're going to have your customary horse card for the weekend because you've been doing very well with that. Are there any big
we're getting ready for the Breeders' Cup, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. The pre-entries will come out next week, and we'll start really getting involved in that. And there's 2 days of Breeders' Cup races. The first weekend in November, and we've always done well on Breeders' Cup, and so get ready for that because if we can, there's a lot of money to be made that weekend. So right now, the stakes races aren't all that great next week because frankly everybody's gearing towards that first weekend in November at Del Mar.
There's no question, and I see it on the business side. Most people are really gearing up, and they really get involved when those big races come. So that's going to be good beginning in November. Everybody mark your calendars for that because you don't want to miss Hank's horses. And as far as this weekend, Hank has been doing very well in a couple of spots here in Vegas. We got the big Westgate contest, and he's doing very well in that, and he's doing very well in the RJ, which is the Review Journal newspaper here.
I'm the top guy in the RJ.
Well, that's about as good as it gets. So tune in, go to the website jimfeist.com. Make sure you click on Hank Goldberg's picks. I mean, he's been making everybody money all year long. Why pass it up?
What about one more game before we go? And that is, isn't it time we started riding San Francisco? I know you have been, Jim, and every game has been decided by 3 points or less, and they've lost all of them. But it's remarkable. Now they got Dallas coming in there, and Dallas is really he's been getting out every week, and now is Ezekiel going to play? Is he not? There's always an issue every week. Now they decided he can play. But the fact of the matter is that, Dallas has some significant problems on defense in their secondary. They've had too much turnover on that team, and they're coming in with a losing record.
I am totally buying into San Francisco playing hard every week. At some point in time, I'm sure that the players are going to be run out of gas because, they keep losing, and nobody likes to lose that much, and eventually you lose heart. But the coach is doing a good job getting them up every week. The question I have, and I'm going to just go back to this, I have when you have untested rookie quarterbacks and whether they can stand up to the switching defenses and the tricks that the defensive coordinator for the other side brings to the table. That bothers me. And it's usually I will not make too many plays on the front end of a game, but I'll watch closely that game and see how the adjustments and how that player is reacting to the schemes. And I saw this a couple weeks ago with Deshaun Watson when they played Kansas City. And Kansas City was playing some zone early. And honestly, Watson. That was a tough game. He did not look good throwing into the zones. He was throwing into double and triple coverage, passes he should not have been making. And that happens. These are guys coming out of college or sitting a year and not really playing that much. They don't have the experience. So I don't know. San Francisco switched quarterbacks from Hoyer to going to Beathard. And I'm not sure how he's going to react to that. So I'm going to keep my money in my pocket on this game until the game is started to play. And then I will watch it, and then I'll get involved with live wagering. If I see that Beathard can't handle the defensive schemes, I'll be betting on Dallas. If I see that he can handle it, I know that the San Francisco is going to play hard, and I'll be betting on San Francisco. But that's the advantage.
This may sound strange to you, but Beathard is going to get better coaching than Watson gets in Houston.
Well, well, of course, with Shanahan being there, of course he will. But Watson is a tremendous upside, and in that game against Kansas City, they lost 2 defensive players. It was a mess, and they made it a little bit competitive at the end. But he's great, and he's going to learn really quick. He's got a high character. He works hard. I just don't know that much about Beathard. I have to see what he can do on the field.
I followed him in college because he comes from Bobby Beathard, and Bobby's a good friend, so I watched him a lot, and he's a great athlete, and he's got mobility, and he has, what he has? He has awareness. He knows where the rush is, and he's smart. We'll see what happens. He is young.
Well, thank you, Hank. We'll talk again very soon, and have a good weekend. And let's watch those 2 baseball games today. There's some great games going on in these playoffs.
That's for sure.
Okay.
The first one will be. It's great to see a good pitcher's duel in postseason.
Oh, I'm still talking about Verlander the other day, which was absolutely amazing. Thanks,
Hank. What I like about him? When they show pictures of his wife during the game.
All right, buddy. With that, we'll sign off. Thank you, Hank.